Hi there, I'm Shelley from TamingFrenzy.com, and I wanted to pop in this evening to talk a little bit about fear, and specifically how frenzy feeds on your fear. Now, before we get started, we need to ask ourselves, what is it that we're afraid of? There may be some people who say, I'm not afraid of anything. Well, maybe they are, maybe they're not. There's no way for us to know. But most of us do have some fears. In fact, there have been a lot of studies about the things that people are afraid of. People are afraid of everything from spiders to heights to clowns to public speaking to snakes, all of those kinds of things that we're afraid of. But it seems like in our society there are two very extreme attitudes about fear that tend to be perpetuated. On one end of the spectrum, we have it perpetuated that we shouldn't be afraid of anything. That if we're afraid of something, or that if we admit to having a fear, that we're a sissy, that we're a wuss, that we're not courageous. And that attitude is perpetuated in a lot of the Hollywood movies. Now, I'm the first to admit I love action movies. But have you ever noticed how the hero or the heroine in the action movies never seems to be afraid of anything? It doesn't seem to matter if there are bullets flying or dinosaurs coming up, in the rearview mirror. The hero or heroine has no fear. They just blithely go about doing what they need to do, and they don't seem to experience any fear. On the other end of the spectrum is this attitude that everything is something we should be afraid of. We should be afraid of everybody. We should be afraid of every situation. That everything is dire, and that we should be uber vigilant because the whole world is out to get us. And that's an attitude that is being capitalized upon by fearmongers in society. The problem with both of those attitudes is that both of those attitudes at the ends of the spectrum, they're neither realistic and they're not healthy for us. So we need to take a look at our fears. Now, I read in a magazine a woman was talking about big fears versus little fears. And I thought that was an interesting concept. But I also thought this: fear is something that's very personal and is experienced differently by people. And fear, whether it's a big fear or little fear, is probably kind of like the old joke about the difference between major surgery and minor surgery. And I'm sure you've all heard the joke. It's major surgery if it happened to me, and it's minor surgery if it happened to you. So I have a little bit of a problem with the feeling of big fears versus little fears, because I do think it is all about how we perceive the fear and how we act upon it and how we let it affect us. But something that we can do is we can examine our own fears and work to get to the root cause, because often what we say we're afraid of is not really what we're afraid of. And since I work in the online space, I'll give a few examples that I hear talked about a lot. One thing people will talk about is, well, I'm afraid to leave my job, or I'm afraid to start a new job, or to do something different. And I understand that fear. I've been there. But often what we're really afraid of is not changing jobs or losing jobs or starting a new job. What we're really afraid of is the loss of income, or perhaps the loss of status that may come with a particular job or a particular job title. Another big fear that people have is the fear of public speaking. In fact, most studies, that's ranked like the number one fear, or the number two fear, only after death. It's a huge fear of people. But is it so much the speaking that we're afraid of? Or is it that we're afraid that we'll do a bad job, or that we're afraid we'll stumble over our words, that we'll look stupid, that people will laugh at us? Maybe that's really the underlying fear behind the fear of speaking. Another fear, especially in the online space, is people will talk about, oh, I just can't do video. I'm just scared to do video. And I understand that. But perhaps what we're really afraid of in that case is we're afraid of being judged by how we speak, or by how we look, or how well we present our thoughts. Usually when we're afraid of something, there's the acceptable fear that is the one we will admit to, and then there's that deep underlying fear that a lot of times is harder for us to admit to because it's more personal. That fear of being judged and that fear of failure, to be real honest. So here's where the part with frenzy comes in. You know, frenzy's that little monster that sits on our shoulder and whispers negative things in our ear and messes things up for us. Here's the fact though, frenzy loves our fear. Frenzy loves for us to be afraid. Frenzy loves for us to have self-doubt and anxiety. Frenzy loves for us to say, I can't do that because I'm afraid. Fear, I think, is probably catnip to frenzy. The problem is that all that fear keeps us from doing the things we want to do. It keeps us stuck. It keeps us from making a plan. It keeps us from moving forward. And it keeps frenzy in control instead of us being in control. Now, I read an interesting book recently, and the author made this statement that really struck a chord with me. And the statement was, as long as you have 1% more of something else than you do of fear, that you're golden. And I had to go back and read that statement a couple times, to be real honest. As long as you have 1% more of something else than you do of fear. And once that kind of sunk in, it was very liberating. I thought to myself, wow, I don't have to be super brave or super courageous to try something or to start something. I don't have to have total confidence that it will work out and that it will be successful and that it will be well received. I can be 49.5% scared to death, but as long as I'm 50.5% more motivated by something else, I can overcome that fear and take a chance and do what it is I want to do. I don't have to be one great big bundle of courage. I just need 1% more of something else than fear. It was a very liberating statement and a very encouraging statement. So then we have to ask ourselves, what do you want? What is it that we want? And what is it that we're afraid of? What is it that we're really afraid of that has been holding us back? Now, I can honestly say this about failure because I have failed at some pretty big things in my life. Failure may knock you to your knees. It may make you feel like you have been punched in the stomach. It may make your self-confidence and your ego go on a vacation for a while you're left trying to pick up the pieces and put it back together again. But here's the thing with failure. As long as you get back up, it's not permanent. You can overcome failure, which means that you can then overcome fear and then have the confidence to try something again in the future. So those were just some thoughts I had about fear and how frenzy loves our fear. I would love to hear your comments if you leave them in the comment section below. I would love for you to give this video a thumbs up if you found some value. Share it with your friends. And I'd love to have you come visit me over at my blog. You can find me at tamingfrenzy.com. In the meantime, go and tame a little of your frenzy.